Most men spend their entire lives chasing the wrong things because they believe attraction is a checklist. They've been told that if they just get the right promotion, buy the right car, or hit the gym until they reach a certain physique, the problem of attraction will be solved. While these external factors can certainly open a door or get you noticed for a second, they aren't the primary on switch for real deep-seated interest. The controversial truth is that attraction is not a logical calculation based on your bank account or your height. It is a subconscious response to your energy. Think of it as an invisible signal you are constantly broadcasting. If that signal is tuned to neediness or performance, it doesn't matter how expensive your suit is. People will instinctively feel a sense of friction and pull away. You've likely seen this play out in real life. A man walks into a crowded room who isn't necessarily the tallest, the wealthiest, or even the most conventionally handsome, yet within minutes he becomes the focal point of the environment. Women are naturally drawn into his orbit. They lean in when he speaks, they laugh more easily at his jokes, and they seem genuinely comfortable in his presence. Contrast this with the guy who looks perfect on paper, the one with the high-status job and the curated social media profile, who finds himself being ignored or kept at a distance. The difference isn't about what these men have, but how they carry themselves. The reason this is so difficult for many men to grasp is that we are conditioned to chase validation. We are taught that to be liked, we must perform, impress, or constantly prove our worth. However, the psychological reality is that the harder you try to sell yourself to someone, the more you communicate that you don't actually believe you are enough. This performance creates a subtle tension that people can feel instantly. Real presence, the kind that acts like a magnet, is grounded, calm, and entirely self-sustained. It is the energy of a man who doesn't need the room to acknowledge him to feel secure. This kind of presence is impossible to fake because it comes from a deep sense of internal stability, and once you understand how to project it, you realize that attraction isn't something you have to hunt for. It's something you naturally invite. The most common trap men fall into is treating a social interaction like a high-stakes job interview. You go into the conversation with a mental resume, feeling like you have to sell yourself by highlighting your career wins, your financial status, or how witty you can be. While it seems logical to lead with your best traits, the psychological effect is often the exact opposite of what you want. When you lead with your achievements, you aren't showing high value. You are broadcasting a loud, subconscious message that screams, "I need you to like me." This creates a dynamic of supplication, where you are essentially asking for permission to be seen as worthy. This performance energy creates immediate, palpable pressure in the room. Because you are so focused on the outcome, wanting her to be impressed, you start overcompensating. You might find yourself talking too much to fill every silence, overthinking your jokes to make sure they land perfectly, or constantly scanning her facial expressions for any tiny sign of validation. This hyper-awareness makes you look reactive and uncertain rather than grounded. It's hard for anyone to feel a genuine connection with you when you are busy performing a character designed to win them over. People can sense when someone is on, and it usually makes them feel like they need to keep their own guard up. True attraction thrives in the opposite environment, one of relaxation and security. High-value presence is about being so comfortable in your own skin that you don't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. When you stop performing and start connecting, the entire vibe shifts. Instead of trying to be the most interesting person in the room, focus on being the most interested. Ask thoughtful questions, listen with actual intent, and let the conversation breathe. When you move through the world without the desperate need for a gold star or a pat on the back, you become a mystery that people want to solve. By taking the pressure off yourself to be perfect, you actually become far more magnetic, because a man who doesn't need to prove his value is a man who clearly already knows it. One of the most common and damaging traps for men is the belief that attention is the same thing as attraction. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a consistent text thread, a long conversation, or someone laughing at your jokes, assuming these are definitive signs of romantic interest. However, the reality is that human beings naturally enjoy being noticed and appreciated. It feels good to have someone's undivided focus, and many people will happily accept that attention because it boosts their own ego or fills a void of boredom. Just because a woman is engaging with you doesn't mean she feels a spark. Attention is a cheap currency. It is easy to give and easy to receive. But true attraction is a complex biological response that has to be built over time through tension and genuine curiosity. The mistake many men make is trying to buy attraction by flooding the other person with even more attention. They send good morning texts every day, respond to messages within seconds, and make themselves available 24/7, thinking that being a constant presence will eventually win her over. In reality, this strategy usually backfires because it kills the very things that make attraction grow: mystery and anticipation. When you are always there, always texting, and always checking in, you signal that you have very little else going on in your life. You become a predictable, safe source of validation rather than a high value partner who is living a life of his own. High value attraction requires space to breathe. It needs moments of silence where the other person has the chance to wonder what you're doing or think about the last time you spoke. To move beyond this trap, you have to stop over-investing in people you barely know. True, healthy attraction isn't forced through a digital flood of messages. It develops naturally through shared, real-world moments and high-quality interaction. When you pull back and focus on your own schedule, your own hobbies, and your own responsibilities, you aren't being cold. You are being a man of substance. By not rushing to fill every gap in the day with a text, you allow room for curiosity to develop. You shift from being someone who is chasing a response to someone who is simply living an interesting life and inviting others to join him. Remember, you want to be a romantic partner, not a 24-hour validation service. Most people have a completely backwards idea of what confidence actually looks like. They imagine the loudest person in the room, the guy who is constantly dominating the conversation, making sure everyone hears his stories, or trying to alpha every situation. In reality, that kind of behavior isn't confidence. It's overcompensation. It is a performance designed to hide an underlying sense of insecurity. True, high-level confidence is actually very quiet. It is the internal certainty that you are okay exactly as you are, which means you don't feel the need to win every social interaction or be the center of attention to feel valuable. When you are genuinely confident, you don't have to announce it. People simply feel it in the way you occupy space. The most visible sign of this calm confidence is how you handle silence and social pressure. An insecure man feels a desperate need to fill every quiet gap in a conversation because he perceives silence as a failure or a sign of boredom. A confident man, however, is perfectly comfortable in a silent moment. He doesn't rush to fix it because he isn't anxious about how he is being perceived. This same steadiness shows up when things don't go perfectly. If you tell a joke and nobody laughs, or if someone disagrees with your opinion, a confident man stays relaxed. He doesn't get defensive, he doesn't blush with embarrassment, and he doesn't try to explain himself away. This emotional unshakability signals to everyone around you, especially women, that you are grounded and that you trust yourself. This type of energy creates a profound sense of safety and stability in a social environment. When you aren't desperately trying to control the outcome of the night or force people to like you, you become a solid presence. You aren't reacting to every tiny shift in the room's mood. Instead, the room begins to react to your steady pace. In a world where most people are constantly anxious, checking their phones, and worrying about their social standing, the man who is simply present and comfortable in his own skin is incredibly rare. Because this energy is so hard to find, it acts as a powerful signal of high value. You aren't standing out because you're louder than everyone else. You're standing out because you are more grounded than everyone else. Neediness is often described as the silent killer of chemistry because it works beneath the surface, slowly draining the tension and excitement out of an interaction. The most dangerous part is that many men don't even realize they are being needy. They genuinely believe they are just being attentive, caring, or a nice guy. However, there is a massive psychological difference between showing interest and being emotionally dependent. If your internal state, your happiness, your confidence, or your sense of peace shifts the moment she takes a few hours to reply to a text. You aren't being attentive. You are broadcasting a signal that your well-being is entirely in her hands. This creates a heavy energy that feels like a burden to the other person, as they subconsciously feel responsible for maintaining your mood. When you operate from a place of seeking validation, your behavior becomes reactive rather than proactive. You might find yourself over-apologizing for tiny things that don't even require an apology, or spending 20 minutes drafting a simple text message because you're terrified of saying the wrong thing. This hyper-focus on her reaction makes you appear fragile. It sends the message that you are emotionally hungry, and hunger is never attractive. It's a demand for someone else to feed your ego. Instead of two people coming together to share an experience, the dynamic becomes one person trying to extract a good reaction from the other. This pressure is exactly what causes people to pull away, even if they were initially interested. To break this cycle, you must shift your focus toward building a life that is inherently fulfilling on its own. This isn't about playing hard to get or pretending to be busy. It's about actually being busy with things that matter to you. When you have your own set of goals, a solid circle of friends, and hobbies that genuinely excite you, your world no longer revolves around a single person's approval. You stop waiting by the phone because you have work to do, a gym session to complete, or a passion project to finish. This shift in lifestyle changes your energy from hunger to abundance. You no longer approach women asking, "Will she like me?" Instead, you approach them as a man who is already complete and stable, simply looking to see if they fit into the high-quality life you are already building. While society often obsesses over physical appearance, the perfect hair, the gym-honed physique, or the trendiest clothes, these things only serve as a brief introduction. A good appearance might get you noticed for a split second, but purpose is what actually keeps someone interested for the long haul. Purpose isn't some abstract, unreachable concept. It simply means having a clear direction in your life. It means you are actively working towards something that matters to you, whether that is mastering a specific skill, building a career, growing a business, or pursuing a personal mission. When a man has a genuine focus outside of his social life, it changes his entire internal chemistry. He stops viewing every interaction as a life or death situation because his self-worth is tied to his progress and his contributions, not just his reflection in a mirror. A man who is on a mission moves through the world differently than a man who is just drifting. Because he is disciplined with his time and focused on reaching his goals, he naturally develops a scarcity of attention that isn't faked. He simply has things to do. This creates a powerful, natural momentum that people can feel the moment he speaks. He isn't sitting around overanalyzing who liked his latest post or why someone hasn't texted him back, because his mind is occupied with the work he is doing. This lack of desperation is incredibly attractive because it signals high value. It shows that he is a leader of his own life and that his time is a valuable resource that must be earned rather than something he is desperate to give away to anyone who looks his way. On the other hand, a man without a clear purpose often becomes hyper-fixated on how he is being judged by others. Without a mission to build, his primary project becomes himself and how people perceive him. He spends all his mental energy seeking attention and validation because he has nothing else of substance to focus on. This creates a stagnant energy that is the opposite of attraction. Real magnetism isn't about being a static, perfect image. It's about the energy of a man who is in motion. People are drawn to those who are going somewhere in life, not those who are standing still waiting to be noticed. When you prioritize your purpose, you stop being a spectator in your own life and start becoming the architect of it. And that is a shift that no amount of expensive clothing can replicate. In any social or romantic dynamic, real power belongs to the person who is genuinely willing to walk away. This isn't about being mean, acting cold, or trying to use withdrawal as a manipulation tactic to get what you want. It's actually about something much deeper: self-respect. It means you have a clear set of standards and personal boundaries that are more important to you than the approval of any one person. Most men struggle with this because they prioritize keeping the connection alive over their own dignity. They believe that by compromising, being extra understanding of bad behavior, or staying in a situation where they aren't valued, they are being patient. In reality, they are signaling that they don't value themselves enough to leave, which is the quickest way to kill attraction. The uncomfortable truth is that many men settle for disrespect, flaky behavior, or poor treatment because they are operating from a place of scarcity. They are terrified of being alone. But the moment you show that you will tolerate almost anything just to keep a woman in your life, your perceived value drops instantly. People naturally respect those who demonstrate that they respect themselves. When you stay in a dynamic that makes you feel small or undervalued, you aren't being loyal. You are broadcasting a scent of desperation that people can sense from a mile away. It signals that you don't believe you could find anyone better, which confirms to the other person that they are the one doing you a favor by staying. When you have the strength to walk away from a situation that isn't healthy or aligned with your values, everything changes. You are no longer controlled by the fear of loss, and that freedom allows you to be your most authentic and relaxed self. You aren't walking on eggshells or performing to keep her interested because you know that your life will continue to move forward and be fulfilling whether she is in it or not. This isn't about being aggressive. It's about having a quiet exit policy for anything that doesn't meet your standards. By being willing to lose the interaction to save your self-respect, you ironically become far more magnetic. A man who cannot be controlled by the fear of being alone is a man who truly owns his own life. The core message of everything we've discussed is simple, yet it has the power to completely transform your life. Attraction is not something you earn through a transaction of gifts, favors, or rehearsed pickup lines. It is an emotional and biological response felt through your energy. You could have the most impressive stats on paper, the high-paying job, the six-pack, or the expensive watch. But if your internal energy is rooted in neediness, reactivity, or a desperate hunger for validation, you will always struggle to build genuine attraction. People don't fall for your resume. They fall for the way they feel when they are standing next to you. If you are constantly looking for a green light from someone else to feel confident, you are effectively giving away your power before the conversation even begins. The shift you need to make is to stop chasing and start building. When you turn your focus inward toward your personal mission, the mastery of your own emotions, and the construction of a life you actually enjoy, your energy shifts from predatory to magnetic. You stop asking the world for permission to be yourself. There is a profound strength in a man whose value is not up for debate and is not dependent on someone else's opinion of him. In this state, attraction stops being a stressful chase where you are constantly trying to catch someone, and it starts becoming a natural reflection of who you are. You aren't trying to pull people into your life. Your life becomes so compelling that people naturally want to be a part of it.